At the time, people acted like I was so weird. You would have thought I was like going to be like shaving my head and becoming nocturnal. And like it was, people were like, you're gonna regret it. And I feel like, what am I? It's not that different than normal life. It's just some more flexibility. And most
Right.
people get it now with the pandemic. So society took a big leap in understanding.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, Audley Stevenson here, and you've got it locked to the Audacious Living Podcast, hands down the most audacious podcast you'll find on the internet. And as always, it continues to be a pleasure to be here and help our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. You know, we often on this podcast explore stories and experiences of individuals who are embracing an audacious lifestyle. We've been doing that for the last 250 episodes, and we're doing it here today because on today's episode, we've got Kayla Ihrig. She's a digital nomad and an author who shares her journey of living and working abroad as a digital nomad. Kayla talks about the impact of technology, remote work, and her personal growth through immersive travel experiences. Not to mention, she's got an upcoming book coming out, How to Be a Digital Nomad. So join us as we delve into the world of digital nomadism and discover the transformative power of embracing an audacious lifestyle while traveling and learning abroad. Hey, Kayla, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's awesome to have you here, man. Thank you for making the time.
Audley, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, but listen, I'm always as appreciative of individuals stopping by and hanging out like this and sharing their stories and on this sort of audacious path that we're all living. And the piece that always resonates with me is that path that we're on, it's very individualistic, right? And so what one person does from another, they're not going to be the same, but I still think there's value in their stories, and it makes sense to hear certainly about yours, as you've taken the route of a digital nomad, which is an awesome way of living on, and you're clearly you're enjoying it. So maybe as a starting point, because people are going to say, what's a digital nomad? What that's all about, right? So maybe as a starting point, if you sort of fill our audience in a little bit about you and what got you to the point that you're at now, and wherever you're at too, right? Because you could be anywhere in the world.
I actually did think about it whenever we started talking, but I'm in Italy, so I've only been in Italy for like 20 hours, so we just arrived last night. But
Okay.
I'm from Pennsylvania in the US, and I was living before I became a digital nomad. My kind of like before picture was me living in Chicago. I was 23 and I was like had my first like real salary. I was feeling very grown up and life was like really good. I kind of felt like I'd achieved all these things that I thought meant like a happy adult life. Like I was living alone, I was working downtown, I had like like a 401k, and I worked for like a nice company, but I just wasn't really enjoying it as much as I thought that I would. And I felt like
Mhm.
life was like so not fun. And I know it almost felt like childish to want life to be fun. And I started asking people that I worked with, do you think life is supposed to be fun? And everyone had kind of the same response that it ought to be, but it's really not.
Right.
And people started telling me, don't worry, you'll get used to it. And I thought that's like my greatest fear is that I get used to like not really enjoying my life. Like that was this like worst case scenario. And then I discovered these people on Instagram living in vans. Like van life was very kind of new and like booming at the time, and it still is. But I thought, wait, people are working online. Like they are, instead of working in a cubicle, you mean to tell me people are like anywhere else in the world? And I just became obsessed with this idea.
Right.
And I left my job in 2017. I found work on Craigslist, actually, of all places. I found this like remote work gig. It was like part-time. And I thought I kind of just did the math. If I reduce my cost of living, get rid of my apartment, and I go to a country where life is cheaper and I'm making dollars and spending a currency that's like, not as powerful, then I can do this. Like, I think I can make this work. And now I've been abroad more or less the entire time since then. So it's been plus years of being abroad. And now
Wow.
everybody knows what a digital, it seems like everyone is talking about it now. And at the time people acted like I was so weird. You would have thought I was like going to be like shaving my head and becoming nocturnal. And like, it was, people were like, you're gonna regret it. And I feel like, it's not that different than normal life. It's just some more flexibility. And most
Right.
people get it now with the pandemic. So society took a big leap in understanding.
You were just ahead of the curve a little bit.
And it wasn't even new whenever I started. 2017, that was like, people still
Yeah.
acted like it was really bizarre. But the first digital nomad that I found, because I just wrote a book on digital nomadism, the first digital nomad that I could find was 1983. So
Huh.
it is truly not new. It pretty much dates back to computers being available to the public. And it's just become easier and easier and easier since then.
Right. And more accepted, I would imagine too. Like, I mean, that's a big part of it. The part though that really just sort of fascinates me is the whole idea of you're doing something, not happy about it, and making the decision to do something different. Because Kayla, that's not there are a lot of people who are in situations who are doing things, they're not happy with it, but still not doing anything differently. So that's a big deal.
I was really lucky. Well, before I was entered the workforce, I went through a period of life where a lot of people in my life died. Like my last year of college, 7 people in my life died.
Mm,
And I had this really strong sense of like, I might get hit by a train tomorrow. Like, I really felt like nothing is guaranteed. And that was really traumatic, but then
yeah,
very formative as I entered the workforce and thought, so many people are unhappy and don't want to change or they can't change. And I don't know where that line is for a lot of people, where they can or won't or can't. I don't know, but I thought I'm not going to spend my life convinced that I can't have what I want.
gotcha.
Was not interested in that.
Well, and also too to smash the traditional thinking. Like that's really is a big deal. I mean, we've grown up our entire lives as this is what we're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to get an education, supposed to get a job, work for a company. There was a point where you say that company the rest of your life. That's now changed. Now people are accepting that you might work for 2 or 3 companies, maybe even more over the course of your life. But nonetheless, that still falls in that traditional. You do this, you do this, you do this, and you retire and you die, and that's it. That's life, right? Like that's kind of what it is. And so to challenge all of that and say, yeah, wait, there's more. No, I can do different. Like, no, it doesn't have to be this way. Like you're taking the road less traveled.
Yeah, I guess it felt like I was seeing other people do it, which to me made it feel really achievable. Like I saw other
Okay.
people online doing it. And to me, I don't know, I kind of have this like I had this motto back then and I kind of always had this attitude like if they did that, I could do that, right?
Sure.
And not like but I feel like come on, I have YouTube. Like what can't you watch a tutorial for? Like I don't know, or living abroad, you think I don't speak the language, I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna somehow like go check into that hotel and get the key. And it's just, I don't know, travel as well gave me a lot of confidence. I needed confidence to kind of leave the US, but then you gain so much confidence whenever you figure so much out on your
Right.
own, and you realize that everything, I think it's Marie Forleo who says everything is figure outable, but realizing that and like really internalizing that, I think is very life changing.
Nice. So what was the initial conversation with your family like when you said, "Hey, I'm gone"?
They were really supportive. I have really,
Wonderful.
really supportive parents. They're both nurses, and nursing is a really hard job.
Yeah.
And they always felt like we were, I don't know, I think there was this attitude growing up, you can do whatever you want,
Sure.
so you should really enjoy it. And I was really grateful I really had that idea like, well, as long as I'm doing what I want to do, I'm succeeding. So my family was extremely supportive. Not everyone was. Like there were people in
Sure.
my life who were, you're gonna regret this, whatever your retirement fund is, whatever, and at 23, it did not matter. I mean, I'm 30
Mm,
now and it matters a little more. But even then, I don't know, I was getting advice from people very different stages of their lives, giving
sure.
me advice and kind of hearing the predominant message though, you should do this when you're young, or you should do it now, or I wish I had done it. And hearing that over and over again really made me feel like I'm on the right path, I think.
What I think is awesome, and you just said it there. As long as you do what you want to do, you're succeeding. Like that's a really powerful statement because again, I sort of talked about a lot of people don't do that, right? So that really says a lot.
I was really, I mean, I don't know how I got so lucky to have such supportive family. And then I met my husband on the road traveling, and
Okay.
his family is also very supportive of our lifestyle. So I feel like all around it's yeah, I've been really blessed in that way, in that region.
Okay, so how long was that decision making process? You got your cubicle job, you're doing your thing. How long did you go from thinking about it to hell yeah, I'm gone?
Um, I think it was October 6th. I wrote it down in my, I'm a big writer. I mean, I'm a
Okay.
professional writer, but I always write a lot to process my thoughts. And
Yeah.
I wrote down like, maybe it's not such a crisis. I was really obsessing, like, I need to get out of here. Oh my gosh, like really railing against the whole idea of sitting in a cubicle until
Right.
I turned 65. And I wrote like, maybe it's not such a crisis, but maybe it is. And then a few days later, and I actually looked this up and pulled out my writing for the book whenever I was writing it. And then a few days later, I wrote like, maybe it's not a crisis, but it probably is worth treating it like one. Like,
Gotcha.
I'm leaning all the way in. So that was October. And then I thought by March, the solution is traveling. I know what I'm going to do. I have this loose plan. I gave my notice at my job in May or June. And I was so afraid at that meeting with my boss that the
Mhm.
bottom of my glasses steamed up from me sweating.
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
terrified. I thought I was like kind of convinced I was making a mistake,
Right.
but I knew I was too far in. I already just like gotten rid of my apartment's lease. I told them I'm not re-signing my lease. I was too far in to turn back.
Right.
And then I left the US in August on a one-way ticket to Mexico and
Wow.
have never returned to living in the US since.
So you went to Mexico straight, and did you have a general idea what you were gonna do, or you just
No,
come
I
on,
had
Kayla,
no
come
plan.
on, man? You mean you got up and left and had no clue? That's awesome.
I had no idea. I had Google Translate on my phone. And then after like a week, I thought I cannot do this. I need to go to Spanish, learn some Spanish. So then I signed
Sure.
up for Spanish school. So that was kind of, well, let's like learn how to order food because I'm vegetarian. So I was getting like chicken, a plate of chicken after plate of chicken. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do this. I need
Right.
more skills here. And then
Yes.
I
Yeah.
signed up for Spanish school and then I met my husband there and we've been traveling and I've moved to his country for a few years and we used that as like a base to travel within Europe and yeah, now we're full time. We got rid of all of our stuff 6 months ago. So we
Wow.
had a home base for a few years and now we're nomadic again. We each have 2 backpacks.
So your worldly belongings are on your back.
Yeah, we're real turtles, it's all there. So for better or worse, I just bought a pair of boots actually because it was that moment. People are like, "What if you regret getting rid of something?" And we always say, "Oh, we'll just get it on the road." And it did get really cold, and then I just bought a pair of boots. So it was one of those like, okay, we're learning to adjust. You pick up a few more things, you get rid of a few things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. It reminds me, and certainly not the level that that your situation, your experience, but it reminds me of a story. I remember working with a gentleman who he was he worked he worked in the finance industry, and had done it for several years. Went to school, studied all that kind of stuff, but he was also very passionate about the game of golf. Like that was just he just loved golf, and he decided one day that he was going to quit his finance job to go work on a golf course,
Hmm.
and not like he's managing the course, not like just actually helping cleaning up and straightening and tending to the course. And he was so excited about it. He was thrilled about it. And no
Mm.
one around him could understand. They couldn't grasp it. They thought that, it was, is he lost his mind? One person suggested like maybe he talked to someone like a counselor or something to make sure he's making the right decision. And I just remember, I remember I had a short chat with him. I said, "Yeah, you sure you want to do this?" And he's like, "Absolutely." Like, knock yourself out, man. Like, as long as you. So the point is, it's that pathway to our happiness. I talked about the top about, we all take our own audacious path. That pathway to our own individual happiness is not going to be the same. And
Mm.
yours and his and mine, they're all different. And so really, it's about how do I get to that place of happiness, and that's what I'm hearing from your story.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story. And it's funny because I bet he thought if it doesn't work out, plan B is that I just come back. get another finance job. And it's kind of a really, like, I think kind of a light bulb moment for me and maybe other people, whenever you realize that like plan B, if it all goes wrong, is what you're doing. Like, did you even try for plan A?
Right.
Or are you living your plan B? And he went after his plan A, and I love that.
Clearly. He clearly did. So how many countries are you up to now?
I have been to 30 countries.
Come on. 30 countries.
And well, Europe, it's like driving through the States, it's
Sure,
like new
sure.
country,
Yep,
new language,
yep,
new everything. And like
yep.
last night we rolled in, we were like, wait, are we in Italy now? Because we were on this long train ride. It's like, wait, what country is this again? Which feels surreal still. I've been in Europe now, living here for 5.5 years, and it still feels surreal.
And you must be engaging in like new experiences every day.
Yeah. It's funny, there's like a routine, like you always get, like I'm very routine oriented, and maybe
Okay.
that sounds like it's not as adrenaline packed as it sounds.
Wait a
Like,
second. Wait a second. How can you say you're routine oriented, but you've gone to 30 countries? Come on, that's a
I
different
have
routine 30 times, man.
kind of, you're solving all the same problems. It's like
Right,
you go to the grocery store and you're like, is this butter, or is it lard, or is it like jam? What is this? And you like
right.
ask the same questions, and sometimes you never find the answer because you just really can't identify foods. But it's funny, even like the foods I eat now are very shaped. Like, I wasn't a big yogurt eater whenever I lived in the US, but living abroad, you can like always find yogurt. I've yet to find a place where I can't find yogurt. So last night we got off the train with our packs on, and we were walking to the Airbnb, and we said, oh, let's stop at this grocery store, and we got our yogurt because that's our routine. We always get yogurt for the morning, and
Yep.
it's just this little it's yeah I very much have a routine of traveling, but we don't travel like A to B to C all the time, so we
Okay.
usually stay places for a month, and
Okay.
that is
Okay.
very routine. Like, you have your grocery store, and you found like the local pizza, and that's very, like, you get settled in very quickly. And a month feels like a very long time. A month, like, time moves at different speeds. A month in your home, in your hometown, where you understand everything, because you're not thinking, you're not like, where's the grocery store?
Right.
What's this food? Do you think this is cereal, or is this like something? You don't have to ask all these questions. So whenever your brain is like, what's that? I don't know, left, right, what, you're always evaluating everything whenever you're in a different country. So time really slows down, and it makes you feel like a month to me feels, I would say like a month abroad feels like 3 months at
Right.
home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the underlying themes of your story is the perspectives that you're opening yourselves up to, and the wonderful insight that you're gaining, and the learnings and the lessons. I think you and maybe I can get you to share just what that's done for you. But I would imagine that's given you as like the word tolerance, but that's not really what the word I want to use. But it gives you an
Mm.
understanding of people. My guess is you're probably a lot less judgmental because you've got to be a bit more understanding, and of these, especially when you come to different cultures. And maybe you can explain further, because I would think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting how you feel like you don't know anything. Like, you think about like, well, what rude, let's say like what rude is. Like right now, I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but there's like screaming children outside. They
Okay,
are
no,
like shrill. Okay, it's
I can't
very
hear him.
loud. And you would think, well, that's really rude. Like, your parents should be, not allow you to be this loud for so long in public.
Right.
But it's funny how that, like, there is no norm for anything. Like, there's even like something like smiling or like nodding your head yes. Like, there's no norm for anything in life. And
Mm,
to me, what that means, that I like read the room a lot. I'm like looking at what other people are doing, even crossing the road in some countries or some cities. You could say like crossing the road. Like, we were just in Cancun, Mexico, a few months ago, and we like couldn't cross the road because it was so busy and there were no crosswalks. We're like waiting and watching other people cross, so we would wait until someone else came, because it's like all these rows of traffic, and you
yep.
don't know what the right thing to do is, and people aren't slowing down. And you just learn that, I don't know, like, you kind of don't know anything, and it kind of takes you back to basics. And I enjoy the feeling of having to figure things out. But it's always kind of the same. If you don't know how to get somewhere, you watch someone else do it. Even little kids, like, because in the Netherlands, where my husband's from, I lived there for a few years as my home base, and there you bike everywhere. Like there are
Right.
4-year-olds biking to school in the rain and they're just
Gotcha.
like just going
Yeah.
about their day, you know.
That's life.
And so many times I like didn't know where to go on my bike and I would just pause and wait for someone else to go. And sometimes it would be like a 6-year-old and I'm like, okay, man, if you're going, I'm going.
If it works for you, it works for me.
Yeah, you know nothing about. It's amazing. You can go somewhere, like anything that you know, you can find a place where the
Of
opposite is
course.
true.
Of course. Of course. And just so humbling. Again, that you're not as smart as you think you are. You don't have all the answers, and that there are others, like i.e. a 6-year-old that knows more than you.
Yes, gosh, it's so humbling is a nicer word. It's hard watching a kid do something or getting a flat tire. One time, my friend and I were trying to pump up her bike tire, and I should have known how to do that. Like I grew up riding a bike, but I think it's my dad just always did it. You know, it's one of those like loopholes in like knowledge that I don't have. And these kids bike to buy, and we're like, "Where do you put it? And do you think the tire could explode if we pump
Right.
too much?" And these kids were laughing at us. And that's because they learned how to do this whenever they were 5. And it's really funny to see adults who can't do
That's
normal
hilarious.
things.
That's
It
hilarious.
is
That's
humbling.
hilarious. There's a part about your story that I think is really important for people to understand, and that's how you make a living and how you survive. I mean, as much as we talk about traveling, you're not just traveling, and you're actually living in this online world and building a business essentially. I want to sort of describe that because I think it's really important for people to know.
Yeah, so remote work can take a couple different forms. The kind of primary two is self-employment. So whether you're freelance or if you're an online business, or even if you have like property, and you rent that out, maybe you like liaise with a rental agency that's local. So that's like all under the realm of self-employment. And then there's just normal employment with a fully remote role, which a lot of people probably experienced during COVID, that your
Mhm.
position went fully remote for a while. And maybe some people still are fully remote. A lot of
Sure.
companies opened that up because people didn't want to go back.
Right.
And with that flexibility, you can, work from different places. And whether it's like your families, like you want to go visit your sister for more than just a week, go for a month and stay with them. That's what I really like. As much as the travel, I love being able to go spend extended time with my family. And it's kind of as simple as that.
I love again. I love how you make it as simple as it is, and make it sound easy. And again, for me, the idea of just getting up and buying a one-way ticket and go, I'm gone. We talk about audacious. Talk about audacious. That's a pretty big deal. So I want. Is that something you ever see yourself doing? Did you ever like? Is that your nature? But you just get up and do stuff, or is this something out of the norm for you?
I would say I built up to that leap because I graduated from college in Pennsylvania
Okay.
and I always wanted to live far away. So I took a job in Seattle and then I drove with like my little Ford Focus full of all my stuff. I drove to Seattle for 5 days and then lived there for a year and had a job. And then I thought I want to live in a bigger city. Like I don't want to need a car. I want to
Mhm.
have like kind of like the New York experience, but maybe it doesn't have to be New York. So then I got a job in Chicago and then I moved there with all my stuff in my car again. And I was kind of used to starting over. I'd started over twice from scratch where I didn't know anybody. And that was a really lonely experience at first. But then once you realize that, like, because I feel like in life you try to avoid negative feelings. It's like I don't want
Right.
to be lonely and I don't want to feel rejected and I don't want to be rejected, like let's say by jobs or, so you try to avoid those feelings, but then being put in kind of a few situations that made me go through all the loneliness and the starting
Yes.
over and like for like remember my first month living in both of those cities, I didn't have plans once. Like I came home from work like on a Friday night and I had no plans all weekend. It was like me and
Right.
Netflix in my empty apartment. It was really lonely, but you realize that's just a part of the process. And for me, that was a really important realization that like if it's bad at first, that's probably just a part of the process. And it doesn't mean it's like a sign that it's not supposed to work out. So whenever I went to Mexico, I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never been abroad. I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't know anything. And I thought, well, you know what? I didn't know anything before and it worked out okay. So it was a good muscle to build. It kind of reminds me of this guy. He gave a TED talk. I don't remember his name, but he was afraid of rejection.
Okay.
So then he did 100 days of doing things that he thought would be rejected. like walking up to a stranger and asking if he could borrow some money. And he thought they'd be like, get out of my face. And every time they were like, oh, did something happen? What's wrong? And
Right.
one time, the first time he just ran away. He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they were
This wasn't
entertaining.
supposed to
And
go this way.
he was supposed to be practicing rejection, and then he wasn't
Right.
getting rejected. So then he realized how many things in life did he avoid rejection, and here he wouldn't have been rejected. Like his whole rejection experiment was failing because people are so willing to help.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me that's kind of like that. It just resonates, I think, like going and doing things that are like initially difficult or unpleasant, and then they become better over time. You know, nothing's nice at first. Like nobody's first day at a job is nice. You're like, this was exhausting. That HR
Yep.
training took forever. I don't remember anyone's name,
Yep.
but you get through it because you're not going to
Yes.
quit after one day at a new job.
I love it. And really, and the reality is, anything you start for the first time, you're not going to master it. You're going to suck at it. Like it's just that's the way it is. But what oftentimes happens is when you sort of take that first step, and that's something we talk a lot on this podcast about, taking that first step and finding that, that the courage, if you will, to do that. It's really one or two things are going to happen. You're going to succeed or you're not going to succeed. And if you don't succeed, there's still lessons to learn how you can get better so you can succeed for the nenext time. Right. And there
Yeah.
will be a next time. There always the next time. Right. So I think that's a really important lesson.
Yeah, and people are more audacious than they realize if they look back at their lives. Like if you went to college, you already took a bigger risk than traveling. Like if people want to travel, and I would never say like everyone should, but if you're listening and you think I want to do that, but I don't know if I can, if you went to college, you took a much bigger risk. You had no return, no guaranteed returns,
No.
but you thought it was, you jumped in anyway. And if you are a parent, you already did something that you were less qualified to do. Like, come on,
Yeah.
you had no clue. You just dive in. I mean, I don't have kids, but I know you just dive in. And I think it's funny how society like pushes people off those diving boards. And everyone says like, well, that's just the jump, I just have to do it. I feel like I don't know, look at all the other diving boards in life. They're actually a lot lower. Like
Yeah.
you don't have a child for the next 18 years. Like you can
Right.
return home at any time.
Yes, you
I
can.
feel like people have already lived way more audaciously than they realize.
This is it. So I'm glad you made that point, because I think it's so important that we give ourselves credit for what we've done. Because it's like anything that you start brand new, right? You're like, oh my gosh, you get all this anxiety, you get worked up, I don't know. And then you do it, you're like, oh, that's not that bad. And then you stock up some courage for the next time. So when you see it again, you're like, yeah, I did this before, I can do it again, right? And so if we now are taking stock of all these wins that we have in our backpack that we don't realize, and I use backpack for you, by the way, that was a Nomad plug there, where we take on stock of all the wins that we have and we've collected, then the next jump or the next leap is even easier, right? And so It's so
Yeah.
important that we give ourselves credit for what we've done. So I'm glad you made that point.
I love that. And I found that as a recurring theme. I interviewed a lot of people who had been living the digital nomad lifestyle. I interviewed people over spending 5 decades of digital nomadism, and everyone had the same thing. Well, I did it 10 miles away from home, and I realized, wait, if I did it 10 miles away from home, I can move to Australia and do it from there. And well, if I did it from down the road, I can, I guess I can move abroad with my fiance because she got this job in another country, and otherwise we were going to have to break up, like so many people, or I don't know if anyone specifically said that they were going to have to end their relationship, but they thought like, well, I'm sure I figured it out, this thing out once, I can figure out
Right.
this next thing. And that was
Right.
really a reoccurring theme that I thought was really powerful, is that it always led to something next that people couldn't have said yes to without having the foundation of working online. It was always a gateway into the next stream, into the next stream, into the next stream. And they kept getting bigger and bigger because people became more capable and more confident.
I love that. I love that. You've then now sort of taken, I think we alluded to your book, but you've taken sort of your experiences and you've written how to be a digital nomad. Like, and as a guide, so to speak, for others, and you do a little bit of a walk through, if you will, and you lay it all out. I wonder if you sort of just talk about the book and kind of what goes into being a digital nomad.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of information about this now online. There's a lot of YouTube channels and Instagram influencers, and I think that there's a much bigger picture to digital nomadism than just like go live in Bali for a year. There's it's a much deeper and wider and kind of more meaningful conversation than just like live on vacation. It's about mobility, it's opportunity. And I was offered this book deal from a publisher. They said, we're looking for a digital nomad to write this book. And they reached out to me. And I was really nervous to say yes, but I thought, this is like a moment to write. It's like a love letter to the lifestyle and to not make it about my experience. I've been doing this for 6 years, but I wanted to make it about the movement, start to finish, about where it is now, and in 50 years, maybe somebody will look and say, wow, that's like where the digital nomad movement was at the time, because we're already decades into this. And it was just really special for me to distill all of my experience and really trying to help people make decisions. I didn't tell people, go here, go there, do this. This is how much money you need. But like, here's
Right.
10 questions to answer, write your numbers, do the math. That's how much money you need. That's how you find what you need. Because I think that that's what it's all about. It's about finding what you want out of life. And that's what I really aim for the book to be, and to feature people who've been doing really interesting things over the course of the whole experience, from like mobile computers in 83 to dial-up internet in the 90s to Wi-Fi internet cafes in the early 2000s. And then smartphones are basically like more advanced than any computer that there was back then. It's just come so far, and appreciating that. And yeah, that was my approach.
I do love the fact that you categorize it as a movement. That this isn't, like I don't know, a passing phase or something. It's just, a whim. This is something that people live their lives. And I know that you said 83 is when it started. I mean, this is, you think now with the advances of technology and all the things that we can do online through our laptops, you think, yeah, okay, it makes a lot more sense now. But back then, no, not so
Before
much.
internet. I interviewed Stephen K. Roberts is his name. He was a technology writer, and he thought, well, if I can work from home, I can work from anywhere. And the realization, that's where it began. That was like the kind of the silent start of the movement. And he built out this tricked out bicycle, and he had a tent and like solar panels, and he went and he had a mobile. It was like the Radio Shack 1000 or 100, I forget the exact name of it, old like portable computer, and he would plug it in with like suction cups to
Okay.
a payphone. It was called an acoustic coupler, and that would kind of like send his stuff to a fax machine. I think it was received
Wow.
by a fax machine. I mean, if you look at where it started to where we are now, I mean, really technologically speaking, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We did not have to do the heavy lifting here.
Sure.
And it makes it look like it's no work at all whenever
Right.
you see the tools at your disposal. And Google
Yeah.
Translate, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't travel before the age of Google Translate, so
Yeah.
that I alone, like the phrase books, flipping through and pointing at
Sure.
things. I mean, I do a lot of miming now as it is. You don't always use Google Translate, but
Sure. But even something like Airbnb is an example. Like, what were you doing before that? Like, how did you figure out where to stay and live and exist? Right. These are little things that, again, I think standing on the shoulders of giants is a great depiction of sort of what where we're at, because the hard work has already been done.
yeah, it's funny that I feel like every generation thinks like that they are the first ones to be rejecting society's approach to life, but like it's old, like we're just the new Kerouac, Jack Kerouac, or Life on the Road. It's all very familiar. I think that
Gotcha.
feeling of like I want to wander away and do something else, but now we can wander away with our careers, with our relationships, I mean, it's amazing what we take with us now and the opportunity. You don't have to be this like social outcast that you like send a postcard home once a year or whatever. You get to have Zoom calls, and
Right.
people, we're already using this technology. Like most
Right.
people, some people don't even tell their employers that they are living in a different country or traveling
Yeah.
full time. You
Yeah.
shouldn't do that, because there's actually implications. Like your employer can be fined if
Okay.
depending. That's called
Yes. Yes.
stealth working. But yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of people online who share that they do anonymously share that, yeah, well, I'm living in Dubai now for like 2 years and my employer thinks I'm in Ohio. And
Okay.
nobody notices. The technology
Right.
is so seamless.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Wow. Kayla, I've got to ask. I would imagine that these experiences, as a result of these experiences, you've grown personally, And so so it's a two-part question. I sort of want to ask about, where you've seen that personal growth, and do you think you would have attained that growth any other way but traveling?
I feel very humbled by my experiences, and I think that if I look at my desire my like efforts to go and travel and see different things, that directly led into me. That directly fueled the growth of me wanting to have a career that I loved and not just make ends meet. Having this feeling of, wanting to get the plan A version of my life. Whenever you think like you see things in pictures, you see like the Eiffel Tower, and then you're sitting there like laying stretched out in the grass, like looking at the sun come through the Eiffel Tower. You think everything out there exists and you can just go to it. And to me, that really like seeped into the realization about my career. Like I see people with businesses. I can have my own business too. And if they are professional writers, well, I can publish my own writing and build up that way too. And that for me was probably the biggest impact. Like if I can do this, then I can do that. And that fueled so much change and growth in me. And yeah, it was really, really life-changing.
Man. And again, I guess traveling is what did it. I don't know, like that kind of growth you're describing. I don't know if you can get it any other way. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Travel is just like one really immersive experience.
Okay.
And maybe I think of people who are at home with kids, like who have a child and are all of a sudden at home with them all day. They've never been around. Like that is also a very immersive. I used to be a nanny. So I can really commiserate. That's a very immersive experience.
Sure.
And I think that it's kind of rare to have an experience that you are completely surrounded in, where it changes everything about what you're doing and how you feel at every moment. So I think that immersive experiences themselves, they just are really influential in their nature. And travel's a really easy one because you are immersed. You hear the kids screaming outside. You hear the food is different, the smells, the sounds, everything is surrounding you, and you can't change it unless you go home. Like this, your reality is like very consuming.
Got you. So you're in Italy now. What's next? Like you're here for about 30 days or so, and then you're off.
We're actually traveling to Croatia, so we'll be in Croatia for a few months. So we're traveling to Croatia over by train. So we crossed the Alps for the last 2 days. We're in Italy for just kind of catching a break from being on the trains, and then leaving tomorrow morning for Croatia, where we'll run out the new year and have a Croatian Christmas and New Year's. That's our tradition every year. We spend New Year's in a different country. So gonna see what a Croatian New Year's looks like, what special foods are in the grocery store,
Yep.
what's the festivities, and just seeing how other people celebrate life.
So amazing. Kayla, I have to congratulate you for stepping and living a life that you want to live, and embracing the marriage that you have. So congratulations for the book. Well, maybe we can let our listeners know where they can pick up a copy. It's not available quite just yet, but when it is, where can they go for it?
You can find it on Amazon and also a lot of online booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Target. It's
Okay.
online everywhere. And
Amazing.
maybe you can drop the link in the show notes for people.
Will do.
And that comes out in January. And if anybody is interested and wants to talk, more, is this right for me? You can send me an email too. I love chatting. My email is Kayla@writingfromnowhere.com. And I'd love to hear from anyone.
I like that. Writing from nowhere. I love it. Awesome.
That's
Well,
me in a
listen,
nutshell.
that's awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, look, this has been a blast. Again, I love the story. Love the way you've stepped out and branched out in such amazing ways. But now the fact that you're able to inspire others, because you undoubtedly are going to inspire. There's someone who's listening, going, "Wow, I wonder if I can do that." Like that, and that's a powerful thing to be able to do for others. So thank you. Appreciate you, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Audley. You too.
I'm back right here on the podcast. So much thanks and appreciation goes out to Kayla for being here and sharing her insights and experiences on what it means to be a digital nomad. I would encourage listeners to check out her new book, How to Be a Digital Nomad. And I got you covered because the link is in the show notes. I really appreciate the conversation that Kayla and I had, but if there's just one thing I take from the chat, it would have to be this. Travel has always been a transformative experience, offering the opportunity to explore new cultures, meet diverse people, and witness breathtaking landscapes. The immersive nature of travel can have a profound impact on personal growth and perspective, shaping our understanding of the world as well as ourselves. Let's delve into the ways in which travel can broaden our horizons, foster empathy, and cultivate a deeper appreciation for the richness of the human experience. Let's start off with expanding horizons. Hands down, one of the most powerful aspects of travel is the ability to expand our horizons beyond what we can see or what's in front of us. Stepping outside familiar surroundings and venturing into the unknown can challenge preconceived notions and open up our minds to new possibilities. Whether it's wandering through the bustling streets of a foreign city, trekking across rugged terrain, or interacting with locals in a remote village, each experience contributes to a more comprehensive understanding of the world around us. Let's talk about fostering empathy, because travel has a remarkable ability to foster empathy by allowing us to walk in the shoes of others. Meeting people from different backgrounds and listening to their stories can be a profound source of empathy and understanding. Engaging with individuals whose lives may be vastly different from our own can challenge biases and stereotypes, fostering a sense of compassion and connection. Cultivating perspective. When we immerse ourselves in new environments, we gain a fresh perspective on our own lives and the world around us. Travel can provide a much-needed break from our daily routines, allowing us to reflect on our values, goals, and priorities. Experiencing different ways of living can lead to a reevaluation of what truly matters and what we may sometimes take for granted. In conclusion, again, the immersive nature of travel serves as a catalyst for personal growth and perspective. By understanding our horizons, fostering empathy, and cultivating a broader perspective, travel has the power to transform us in profound ways. As we venture into the world, we not only gain a deeper understanding of different cultures and ways of life, but also gain a greater appreciation for the interconnectedness of humanity. Ultimately, the experiences we gather from our travels can shape our worldview, enrich our lives, and inspire positive change on both a personal and global scale. We've sadly come to the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I send my thanks and appreciation to all those lovers of Audacious who support this podcast. It's so much appreciated, and for that, I say thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.